What do you say before you reach for your phone during a traffic stop, when one wrong move can make an officer think you're going for a weapon? If you grab for that phone without warning, the whole stop can change in 1 second. And once that stop turns into a safety threat, your risk goes way up fast. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could keep you safe the next time lights flash behind you. Like this video too, because if you don't lock these words in now, your brain may freeze when you actually need them. Here's the reality. Your phone feels harmless to you, but your hands are what an officer watches first. Your hands tell the story before your mouth does. If you reach fast, reach low, or reach without warning, you can create a problem you never meant to create. Let me show you exactly what you need to say, when to say it, what never to hand over, and how to stop a simple traffic stop from turning into a fishing trip. You're also going to hear the court cases behind this in plain English, so you know this is not just internet talk. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. And by the end, you'll know how to handle the first 10 seconds, the phone request, the extra questions, and the moment the stop should end. Most people have no idea how fast they give up control in a stop. You get nervous, your heart starts pounding, you want to explain yourself, you want to reach for your phone, your wallet, your registration, maybe even record the stop. But the wrong move at the wrong time can make you look dangerous, even when you've done nothing wrong. That's the part nobody tells you. You think you're being helpful. The officer may think you're hiding something or reaching for something. That mismatch is where trouble starts. Here's the reality. A traffic stop is already tense for you and for the officer. If you move first and speak second, you lose. If you speak first and move only after clear instructions, you give yourself a much better chance to stay safe and protect your rights. The first thing you do is announce the movement before you move a single finger. Listen closely, because this is critical. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, my phone is in my right pocket. I am not reaching for it unless you tell me to. Word for word. Memorize that line. If your phone is somewhere else, change only the location. Officer, my phone is on the seat. Officer, my phone is in the center console. Then stop. Wait. Keep your hands visible. Let the officer control the movement. This is 100% legal. You are not refusing. You are not arguing. You are telling the officer where the phone is and showing that you are not making a sudden move. That lowers tension right away. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it answers the biggest safety question first. Where are your hands going and why? When you answer that before moving, you give the officer less reason to panic and less reason to escalate. Watch what happens when you slow the scene down with your words. The stop feels more controlled. Your voice sounds calm. Your hands stay visible. And you stop looking unpredictable. Bad way. Most drivers say, hang on, it's right here, and then dive into a pocket. Then the officer jumps back, starts shouting commands, or orders you out fast. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, my phone is in my right pocket. I am not reaching for it unless you tell me to. Then the officer knows exactly what you're doing, and the stop stays calmer. This matters because officers can legally control your movements during a stop. In Pennsylvania versus Mims, the Supreme Court said an officer can order you out of the car during a traffic stop. In Arizona versus Johnson, the court said an officer can frisk someone during a stop if the officer reasonably thinks that person might be armed and dangerous. In plain English, if your hand movement scares an officer, you may get treated like a threat first and a driver second. You do not want that. Your goal is not to win an argument in the first 10 seconds. Your goal is to make sure you do not create a sudden movement that becomes the whole story. And if you want to record, the same rule applies. You still speak before you move. You still keep your hands visible. You still wait for instructions. You can protect your rights and your safety at the same time. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection in the first moments of the stop because it keeps the scene from spinning out before it even starts. Think you could stay this calm when your heart is racing and your hands want to move? Tell me in the comments, because this first line changes everything. Now let's talk about the second line you need if an officer wants your phone, wants to hold it, or asks you to unlock it. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. Your phone is not just another object. It holds your messages, photos, search history, notes, passwords, health stuff, and your entire private life. So your second line is simple and strong. You look at the officer and say this: Officer, I do not consent to any search of my phone. If they ask for your passcode or face scan, you add this: I do not consent to unlocking my phone. Those exact words. Keep your voice flat. Keep your hands still. This is 100% legal. You are not fighting. You are not grabbing. You are not pulling away. You are using your voice to make your position clear. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because those words matter later. If a search happens anyway, you want it on record that you did not agree. That can become huge if your case ever lands in front of a judge. Let me show you exactly why. In Riley v. California, the Supreme Court said police usually need a warrant before searching the digital contents of a cell phone. In plain English, your phone gets special protection because it holds a massive amount of private information. It is not treated like a loose cigarette pack or a wallet. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I've got nothing to hide," and hand over the phone. Then the officer gets access to way more than you ever meant to share. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any search of my phone." Then you keep your rights alive, even if the officer keeps pushing. Watch what happens when you use that line. First, you stop the casual tone from tricking you. Officers often ask in a friendly way, "Can I just take a quick look? Can you unlock that for me? If you didn't do anything wrong, why not show me?" That sounds small. It is not small. Once you open the door, you cannot control what they look at or what they think they found. Second, you protect yourself from your own nerves. A lot of people talk themselves into consent because they want the stop over. But that fast yes can create a much bigger problem for you later. Now I need you to hear one important thing. If an officer physically takes your phone, do not fight over it. Do not snatch it back. Do not turn this into a tug of war. You say your line clearly once or twice and you stay calm. If they search anyway, you challenge that later. Your job on the roadside is to stay safe, not wrestle over evidence. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and it matters because verbal refusal protects you. Physical resistance can hurt you. The third move is about your mouth, because your phone is not the only trap. The questions are a trap too. Once the officer sees a phone, they may start asking where you were, who you were texting, why you reached for it, whether you were recording, whether you were buying something, whether you had been using it while driving, and where you are headed next. You do not have to turn that into a full interview. Here's exactly what you say. "I'll provide my license, registration, and insurance. I am choosing to remain silent and I do not answer questions." Word for word. Keep it calm, keep it boring, keep repeating it if you need to. This line matters because you still do the basic stuff you must do as a driver. You provide your license, you provide your registration and proof of insurance if your state requires it. In some places, you may also have to give your name during a lawful stop, but that does not mean you need to explain your whole day. Hebelvir's 6th Judicial District Court said a state can require a person to identify himself during a lawful stop in some situations. In plain English, you may have to identify yourself, but you do not have to help build a case against yourself with extra talking. That line keeps the stop narrow. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I was only checking one text," or "My friend keeps calling me," or "I'm late because I just left this guy's house." Then your own words create more questions and more suspicion. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I'll provide my license, registration, and insurance. I am choosing to remain silent and I do not answer questions." Then the stop stays focused on the stop. You may think staying quiet makes you look guilty. It doesn't. Talking too much is what gets people tangled up. Small details stop matching. Nerves make you ramble. One guess becomes a lie in the officer's report. One joke sounds like an admission. You do not win these moments by being the most talkative person in the car. You win by being calm, clear, and short. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it removes the chaos. The officer can still do the stop. You just stop feeding the stop with free information. And if the officer says, "Why are you being difficult?" you do not take that bait. You say your line again. If the officer says, "Only guilty people ask for rights," you say your line again. If the officer says, "Help me out and I'll help you out," you say your line again. That is not disrespect. That is discipline. Most drivers lose control because they start arguing. You do not argue. You do not explain. You do not confess to calm the officer down. You stay on script. Most people already clicked away. If you're still here, you're serious about protecting your rights. Drop a comment saying "I'm still here," because the next part is the one almost nobody uses. Now we get to the line that stops a fishing trip from going on forever. Once the ticket business is done, or once the officer has your documents and starts wandering into extra questions, you need one clean sentence ready. You ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Those exact words. This is not magic. It will not make the officer vanish, but it forces the moment into the open. Either the stop is still lawful and active for a real reason, or the officer is trying to keep you there longer without saying why. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sure, I can stay," or "I guess that's fine," after the warning is already done. Then the stop keeps dragging, and more questions start coming. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Am I being detained, or am I free to leave?" Then the officer has to decide whether to end the stop or explain a legal reason to keep you. This matters because of Rodriguez v. United States. The Supreme Court said an officer cannot extend a traffic stop longer than needed for the job of the stop unless there is independent, reasonable suspicion. Plain English again. Once the traffic business is done, the officer does not get extra time just to go fishing because you seem nervous or because you were holding a phone. That is huge for you. It means time matters, questions matter. The exact moment the stop should end matters. Let me show you exactly how this line protects you. If the officer says, "You're free to go," you leave calmly, no extra speech, no victory lap. If the officer says, "You're being detained," now the officer owns that decision and may have to justify it later. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection against the slow drift from a traffic stop into a full investigation. And if you combine this line with the first three, you stop doing what most people do. You stop volunteering movement, consent, conversation, and time. So now you have the 4 lines. First, announce your phone before you move. Second, refuse consent to search your phone. Third, give the basic documents and then choose silence. Fourth, ask if you are free to leave. You do not need 10 lines. You do not need a speech. You need 4 clean moves you can remember under pressure. Here's the legal picture in plain English, so you know why these lines work for you. Pennsylvania v. Mims means an officer can control parts of your movement during a traffic stop, including telling you to step out of the car. Arizona v. Johnson means if an officer reasonably thinks you might be armed, that officer can frisk you during the stop. That is why your hands and your sudden movements matter so much. Riley v. California means your phone gets stronger privacy protection than most things in your pocket, so police usually need a warrant to dig through it. That is why your refusal to consent is so important. Rodriguez v. United States means the stop cannot be stretched out longer than needed just to go exploring for new crimes without a legal reason. That is why asking if you are free to leave matters. Here's the reality. These cases do not mean you win every roadside argument. They mean your words can protect your safety now and protect your rights later. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in real life. You're driving home at night, your phone slides off the seat and lights up. A second later, you see police lights in your mirror. You pull over. Now watch what happens in the wrong version. You're nervous. You start digging for your phone so you can record. The officer sees movement. The officer comes up tense. You blurt out, "I was just checking my phone for 1 second." Then you keep talking. You admit you were texting. You hand over the phone when the officer asks to see what message came in. The officer scrolls. The stop gets longer. More questions come. Maybe the officer asks you out of the car. Maybe a simple ticket turns into something much worse for you. Now watch what happens in the right version. You pull over, your hands go high on the wheel, your window comes down, your phone is in your pocket, but you do not touch it. The officer walks up and asks for your license. You say, "Officer, my phone is in my right pocket. I am not reaching for it unless you tell me to." The officer tells you to leave it there and get your wallet instead. Good. You move slowly. Then the officer asks why you were looking at your phone. You say, "I'll provide my license, registration, and insurance. I am choosing to remain silent, and I do not answer questions." The officer does not love that. Too bad. Then the officer says, "Let me see your phone real quick." You answer, "Officer, I do not consent to any search of my phone. I do not consent to unlocking my phone." Calm voice. No attitude. No grabbing. A few minutes later, the warning is written, but the officer keeps standing there. Then comes the casual line. "You mind hanging out a minute?" That is your cue. You ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If the answer is free to go, you leave. If the answer is detained, the officer has now made that clear on the record. Either way, you did not hand over your phone, you did not make sudden movements, you did not talk yourself into trouble, and you did not donate extra time to a stop that should have ended. That is how you protect yourself without yelling, without resisting, and without making the scene worse for you. Next video, I'm showing you what to say when an officer asks, "Mind if I search your trunk?" Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that one simple request turns into major searches every single day. So lock this in while you still have your phone in your hand and not an officer at your window. First, you announce the phone before you move so your hands never become the problem. Second, you say you do not consent to any search of your phone so your private life stays protected. Third, you provide the basics and then choose silence so your own words do not build the case. Fourth, you ask if you are free to leave so the stop does not drag into a fishing trip. You do not need to be loud. You do not need to be rude. You need to be calm, clear, and ready. Hit subscribe so you catch that trunk search video next. Smash like if this script just gave you words you can actually use. And drop a comment telling me which line you're going to memorize first. Stay sharp, stay calm, and protect your rights.